All right, I'm going to share my screen. We're finishing up this sheet hopefully today. This is the sheet on not only the order of berachot, but we also said what we called aikar and tafel, the primary item versus the secondary item. We're going to cross into a couple of general topics towards the end of the sheet. And we left off talking last time about rice. So if I scroll up to source 6, we see that regarding rice, it says the Rosh is brought by the Bet Yosef that speaks on to the Rif, which mentions that we have the concept of rice that's mixed with something else. So if rice is mixed with something else, it depends on the majority. If we said if it's majority chicken, you're going to say shakol. If it's majority rice, you're going to say mezonot. However, the Bet Yosef mentions that according to the Rambam, they pick up on the word orez levado. I'm going to highlight it here if you guys can give me just a thumbs up. He says, and as long as it's not mixed with something else, we have ela orez levado, rather orez by itself, rice alone. So now there's going to be a mahloket which talks about it's borei mine mezonot according to the Rambam if it's alone. So to save us just a little bit of time here, bottom line is the rabbis struggle with this wording of the Rambam. Does the Rambam mean to say that any time I mix even a little bit of chicken with rice, it's going to be shakol or not? We end up seeing that Maran, Shulchan Aruch, ends up being posek like the Rif in the beginning and like the Rambam at the end, because he also says levado. The way that the rabbis reconcile, and that's all of this, source 8, source 9, source 10, is they basically say that the concept is that when the Rambam said levado, alone, he meant that as if it was alone. What does it mean as if it was alone? If it's the majority. So it's exactly what we've been saying. If it's the majority, you're going to say, if let's say the chicken is the majority, you say shakol. If the rice is the majority, you're going to say mezonot. Okay, so that's where we stand. I saved 4 or 5 sources. Again, when I used to give this in more in depth at Allegro Franco, we would do every word and it would be teaching skills. Here we're trying to really get more to the bottom line. So bottom line is, let's say when we talked about rice, just as a summary, if you have something that is majority rice, I'm talking about only white rice, then that's going to be mezonot. So even if I mix rice with chicken or pepper steak, or I know in the Chinese restaurant that happens also, somebody orders chicken broccoli. They have chicken broccoli, but with white rice. So if they're going to dump the white rice all over and mix it together, sometimes you could have majority of rice. You'll say mezonot. If you have the chicken plus the broccoli plus the rice all together, and it's a hodgepodge and it's a mix and it's not majority rice, then I'm going to say shakol on that. If the pieces are large enough, and sometimes I like to munch on the broccoli separate, then the chicken, then the rice, I'll say separate beracha on all 3 if I'm not just mixing it all together. So that's where we come to on rice. Any questions on rice before we move on? Let's see if there are any questions on this.
Rabbi, does this mean that sushi would be shakol?
So, hi Eileen, welcome. So we mentioned sushi last week. Again, usually sushi, tempura rolls, which are fried, are automatically mezonot. Me personally, when I say mezonot on all rice, on all rolls, because the rice is the majority, right? It wouldn't be shakol. If I see that some people get rolls that are loaded with avocado, if it's like there's avocado in and on top, that roll would be ha'etz. If there's majority vegetables that are adama in the middle, it would be adama. Otherwise, I'm saying mezonot on almost all sushi. So I know that's a little bit complicated, but it's going to depend on the piece, and we covered it last week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, good. Any other questions on rice? Okay. So now let's go to the sheet. Now on source 11. So the Orchot Haim, it's just funny here, he brings down that what used to happen was that Rabbi David Bar Levi, right, would say, שזה שנהגו ברוב המקומות לעשות מעט משתה בליל הברית. They used to have like a Zohar reading the night before the Brit Milah, and they would give the people nougat. What's nougat? Nougat. It's like a nice sugary little treat. Al rekikim dakim, on small little thin crackers. So again, we see that these crackers are tafel to the nougat. The nougat, this sugary sweet that's on top of this cracker, is just there to hold it. So the Orchot Chaim is reiterating what we said, that anything that's there just to hold something in place, it's not going to be the main item. That is not ikar. So even if it's mezonot, where we said, oh, Rabbi, you taught us that anything that's mezonot, you automatically say mezonot. That's only two things. A, if it's mezonot from the 5 grains, barley, oat, wheat, barley, oats, wheat, spelt, and rye. So that really only excludes really rice. And it has to be there for taste. If it's there for taste, then automatically it's mezonot. So here the Orchot Chaim gives us a night. Again, this is the example where it says at the end, Hilkach, therefore, harakik hutafel ubirkat nugat potarto. When you have this, let's say, a very sugary thing that's on a little disc of mezonot, you're going to say shehakol, and it's poter. Poter means it covers it. Why is that the case? Because here, even though it's mezonot, it is not the key. It is only there to hold the sugar in place, the nougat, in this case, in place, and therefore it is considered, the mezonot is tafel, secondary to the primary item of the sugar. So let me give some examples of things that this doesn't apply to. All right, I'm working backwards. So I wanted to take this as an opportunity to talk about chocolate bars. So many times there are chocolate bars and people just say shakol on all chocolate bars. So let's start easily. Hershey's bar, right? Just a plain Hershey's milk chocolate is shakol. Everything in there is shakol. Hershey's almonds, or like a Mr. Good bar that has peanuts in it. The majority is the chocolate. So I say, well, there's peanuts in it, and I love peanuts. We got it, but now you also love the chocolate. So since there's no mezonot in it from the 5 grains, you're going by the majority. The peanuts are there for taste. The chocolate is there for taste. Nothing is there to hold anything into place. Therefore, the beracha is going to be shakol because the chocolate is majority. Now let's get a little more complicated. What's the beracha on a Twix or on a Kit Kat? So there, Kit Kat has a wafer inside, and Twix has a cookie inside. Those are there for taste. So the beracha on a Kit Kat and a Twix would be mezonot. Mezonot. What about, I see Jacqueline needs a question. Jacqueline, what do you got?
Sorry, Rabbi, but isn't it with the preference of why I eat the Kit Kat, or it's really basically
That's exactly what I hear you. That's what we're trying to, the exact point of the lesson that we've been doing is there are some times when what you prefer matters and other times when it doesn't. When you have mezonot of the 5 grains that's there for taste, automatically, even if you like the caramel better, the beracha is mezonot. That's automatic. Okay? The only time when there's no mezonot and then we have other items all grouped together, so those are the cases where now we have to look at, number one, majority. If the amount is equal or too close to call, then our last stop is, what do you like the best? Okay, so let's say a Mounds bar or Almond Joy, beracha shakol, the coconut is shakol, the shredded coconut, right, that we have. It's very sugary. And again, if it would be the majority, we said ha'etz was coconut. We'd have to then see, does it overtake the chocolate? Not really. I always believe that that's a very thick layer of chocolate, and it goes all the way around. And it's the outer layer, which is more surface area. So I always say on a Mounds or Almond Joy would also be shehakol. And even if it's too close to kol, I think you would agree why you're eating it. It's more of a chocolate bar. So that's to Jacqueline's point, that's what we would say. Other popular ones, let's say like peanut M&Ms. So I used to be, full disclosure, I used to think that I used to say adama on peanut M&Ms because I used to feel like the peanuts were the majority. After doing a little bit more research and talking around, I think that anything that's chocolate covered, especially all the way, it's going to be the beracha on the chocolate. My one thing that I do have a safek, and I don't eat these unless it's really at a wedding that I trust, is the chocolate covered strawberries because they don't dip the entire strawberry. So and it's sometimes especially the elegant ones, it's a very thin layer, and I think the strawberry is larger. But other than that, mostly I'm saying shakol on those types of candy bars. Any questions on candy bars before we just move on? We're going rapid fire.
Sorry, one more question. Chocolate covered almonds then.
Jacqueline, don't worry, this is your class.
Chocolate covered almonds.
So I would say shakol. There was also, by the way, there was also a minhag and a custom, Jacqueline, that mlebas was the lebas that people have was also shakol. So because
and the chocolate cookie pops, there's like the Kleins, they sell it. It's like a cookie inside it. But
I'd have to see it. Send me the ingredients. Maybe you'll send me a picture.
Okay,
if you can. Again, cookie pop sounds like it would be mezonot because it has cookie in there for taste, and it would be mezonot. Sometimes it could be cookie flavored. You have to also be very careful. Things they could have a name like that. It could say cookie pop, but it's gluten free. Gluten free means there's none of the mezonot there. So those gluten free items are going to be shakol.
Oh wow!
If you ever wonder, like how on Pesach you have those potato cakes, right?
Yes.
The cake is made of potatoes. It's cake. It looks like cake, but the beracha shakol. It's made from potato starch.
Wow.
So you always have to know and be mindful of what's in your items before you make the beracha. That's really the meaning. Once we learn the rules are important, but learning of the rules, you got to know what you're eating.
Right. And I always thought that the chocolate covered almonds, like the almonds are pretty big. So I would say ha'etz, and then I would always say, am I right? I'm not sure.
You're right. I was thinking like you. I don't think you're so off because the almonds are large, but think about it. However large the almond is, the outer layer is larger than what's inside, meaning scientifically, whatever's on the outside is larger.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, I love those chocolate covered almonds. Those are awesome, but there's a ton of chocolate on it. That's why I like it.
Right. And those are ikad. So the chocolate is the ikad.
Chocolate is the ikad there. That's what I'm going with. Same thing with the mlebas. I would also say the sugar is the ikad.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.
Sorry for interrupting.
Rabbi?
You're not interrupting. Yeah, Marsha, what's up?
What about chocolate covered, like M&M pretzels?
So there, M&M pretzel, great example. The pretzel is actually mezonot. So there, it's there for taste. All the other examples, chocolate covered strawberry, chocolate covered peanut M&Ms, chocolate covered almonds. The item that's chocolate covered is ha'etz. So it has to go head to head with the shakol. M&M pretzel wins automatically, even if it was a very super minority. So M&M pretzel, I'd say mezonot. That's like a Kit Kat. Oh, you understand? Kit Kat is a chocolate covered wafer. So anytime it's chocolate covered mezonot, that's going to be mezonot there for taste. Good, Marsha?
He's on the phone. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Okay. Anybody else?
Rabbi, what about a date ball?
So excellent. So Sandy, a date ball is ha'etz because it's basically made of a date. I don't know if there's any mezonot in a date ball. Is there? It depends. People make them in different ways. Isn't it supposed to be? The ones that I know are like dates mixed with, like, let's say, a walnut or something like that. That's already ha'etz. It's a lot of ha'etz rolled together. Am I correct in understanding that or no?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll put like there could be chocolate chips in there, but I guess the majority is.
I think the majority are the dates, no?
Right, yeah.
Most date balls that I encounter, I'm saying ha'etz on, and if I eat enough of them, I'm saying al mehya with al haperot, because dates are one of the 7 fruits of Israel.
Right.
Good?
Good, thank you.
Okay. This is a good topic because I know you guys can get your questions out. Anybody else have a question or an item that they've been thinking about before we move on? Okay. All right, so let's go back. Let's move on. So now we're up to source 12. We warped up to source 12. And we see that Maran Shulchan Aruch is posek that same way. Let's read Maran because it's Shulchan Aruch. In Siman Resh Yud Bet 212. Merkahat, right? Like a syrup of sugar. Shemanihim al kikin dakim, that you put on a thin wafer. Otam v'rekikim havu tefela lemerkahat shehadavar yadua she'en mitkavnin le'echol lachem. Here he says even those that are kikim are made of, let's say, like a pita bread or a pita chip. Your whole point is just to eat this this sugar, and the only reason why you have the bread is there to hold, or the mezonot is to hold it, and it's tefela, and you're going to say the shakol. The examples that we gave with candy bars are there for taste, and that's why there's a difference in those halachot. Okay, let's go to source 13 is more of the same. That Maran says it says it again about Rikikim Dakim and Kof Samechet. That's just for reference. And we see that that in source, we'll skip also source 14, is Magen Avraham. We're up to the Mishnah Berurah. That Bekahai Gavna, in this case of the Duvshanim Ikar, Meverech Lahem Borei Minei Mezonot, Upoter HaMerkahat. So what does that have to do with? We see that what are Duvshanim? Also, little like honey cakes, and these honey cakes have mezonot in it, and the mezonot is there for taste. So here you see that Mishnah Berurah reinforces what we said, that anything that is there for taste, you're going to say borei minei mezonot. Okay, so again, he just gave two. What just happened from source 12 through 15, we see that anything that's mezonot, that's there for taste, everything. I told you this orally, but here now you have it written down, that anything, if you had a wafer with sugar or syrup on top, and the wafer is just there to hold it, the beracha she'akol, because the main part is the syrup. If you had the case of duv shanim, which are, let's say, like a honey, but the cake is there for taste, the mezonot is there for taste. In those cases, what's happening is you're saying mezonot because the bottom part is there for taste.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, so I make cake and I use flour, but the flour doesn't have taste. It's just to hold the cake.
So how much flour are you putting?
I'm putting a cup of flour.
What type of cake is it? It's an almond cake? It's
a nut cake, almond, pecan, any kind of cake, even a chocolate cake or plain vanilla. I'm putting a cup of flour, and I know it's not for taste because the flour doesn't have taste. It's just to hold the cake so it doesn't separate.
Right. No, what I mean is that meaning the body of the, sometimes texture could also mean taste. So let's go, let me give you the example. Sometimes, let's say a person is making hamburgers, right? Protein burgers. Now, if I don't put a dash of flour inside the item, it's not going to stick together. So it really, mamash, has to be, you're only putting exactly enough flour so that the cake doesn't fall. That has to be the reason. But flour, obviously flour itself doesn't have taste, but it's what you're mixing together. But a cup of flour is already, that's going to become the body of the, in my opinion, right? That's going to become the body of it. Let's say I want to make gluten-free cookies. So gluten-free has to have 0. But let's say you have just like a low gluten, right? So you just put a dash of flour in it, then it's only there to stick it together, then that's going to be different. You understand, Jacqueline? I don't know if we lost Jacqueline. Okay, so I hope that was clear.
Yeah, sorry. It was glitching. Sorry, Rabbi.
Right. No, I just want to make sure that you understand. I mean, if you're putting a cup of flour in your cake, I think that's more there, meaning that's the body of the cake then is a flour body. So the other things are flavoring the flour, but that's what you're eating. You understand?
Right. And if I put almond flour, which is
almond flour,
obviously not mezonot.
Right. No, so that's what I'm saying. So if it's regular flour, which is wheat flour, and you're putting a full cup, then I would say your cake is mezonot. If you're putting, and then you could put the 7 cups of almond flour, and it's going to be shakol.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, Hazon Ovadia in source 16, We reiterated this 3 to 4 times in our Berachot series because I'm crazy with this halacha, and I just love it. It's just a great dialogue whether you're teaching high schoolers or whatever it is. You always open with ice cream sandwich. So source 16 is just where it says Hamadia Yosef himself says that ice cream sandwich is mezonot. It's Chazon Avadia Tu B'Shvat, page 289, Resh Petet. He says Chesita, which is he explains what it means. That's the name of it. Glida, ice cream, hamunachat ben shte biskuitim. You gotta love Hebrew, right? Biscuits, right? So you got ice cream stuck in between 2 cookies. What is that? Ice cream sandwich. Mevarech al habiskuitim bore mine mezonot. You say mezonot on the cookie. Upoter et glida, and it covers the ice cream. Because the biscuits are hashuv, they're important, meaning for the taste. Mitzad atzmam, ve'enam tefelim laglida. It's not secondary to the ice cream, meaning once it's there for taste, it has equal status, and because it's there, it's part of the 5 grains of mizonot, it's even on a higher level. Aval glida bagavia, but he says ice cream cone. Mevarech ala glida upoter et gavia. That's the opposite. The cone is there just to hold it in place. So you'd say shehakol on the ice cream, and then you could even eat the cone. No problem. Because the ice cream cone is not made to eat. And even if you were left at the end with just cone, you could just say and cover it with this beracha of shakol. So I do something different. I know for a fact because Hamadia Yosef was Gadol Hador. I don't think Hamadia ever went out for ice cream. So when he never went to Pier Village when you have a cone that's like a gourmet cone. And this, if you're getting a gourmet cone with sprinkles and chocolate dipped, and it's a waffle cone versus sugar cone versus wafer cone, and you're picking it to eat, then I think it's the same thing as ice cream sandwich. And then you're going to say mezonot on the cone, and you're going to cover the ice cream, the opposite of here what Hamadia is saying. If you're not such a big fan of the cone, you just like a little taste, or you like sprinkles, and you're going to chuck the cone, even if you eat a little bit of the cone, it's exactly what Hamadia is talking about here, where the gavia, the cone is only there to hold the ice cream in place, and therefore one shehakol on the ice cream is going to take care of everything else. Any questions about ice cream? No ice cream fans? Okay. All good. Okay, so let's see. Let's move on to now Maran, source 17, Siman Kof Ayin Zayin, which is 177, Simanim Aleph and Bet. Here, now that we've spoken about, we've covered the whole item, the whole topic of Ikar and Tafel, which means main part versus secondary part. And now, what does Maran do? Maran Shulchan Aruch is now saying, okay, as a part of this, we have, when it says main and secondary, this is where we get the law of, let's say, of not having to say blessings on any of the food that we eat on Friday night because we said hamotzi. Hamotzi lechamina aretz. Once we make the beracha on bread, you ever hear, bread covers everything. That's true. Bread covers everything that is possible to eat with bread. Okay? So meaning, I don't eat Jell-O with bread. So even though I washed and I said hamotzi, and then I had a whole Friday night meal, when it comes to dessert time and they bring me Jell-O, I have to say shehakol. Because the Jell-O was not covered with my hamotzi lechamin haaretz. Because I don't eat Jell-O with bread. That's called lelapet et hapat. Lelapet, pat means bread. Lelapet means to complement. Complement specifically with bread. Anything that complements the bread is also considered secondary. So all vegetables, all meat, all cheeses, all sauces, all of those items are all eaten with bread. All eggs, proteins, you name it. Bread is, you almost eat it with everything. The exceptions are probably fruits. No one eats fruit with bread, even though I do know that with some of the recent immigrants, they have said, no, they used to always in halab have cheese with melon and bread. Okay, if that's how you eat it, then if you say hamotzi and you have cheese and melon and bread, So then it's going to, obviously for you, it's going to cover. The way of the world mostly is all fruits when they come at the end for dessert. You're going to have to say a nu beracha. Same thing with chocolates or jellos or ice creams. Now, if it's mizonot, let's say it's a cookie. So a cookie is definitely covered with hamotzi lechamin haaretz because it's made of the same thing. So many rabbis say for this reason that you should be careful not to have mizonot in the same meal as bread. So, but again, the way that our diets work, we oftentimes do that. So let's just read it inside. Devarim haba'im betoch ha'seudah. So I gave you most of the laws orally. Now we'll read it in the source to review and then ask questions. Devarim haba'im betoch ha'seudah. Food that comes to you in the middle of the meal, meaning I washed for Friday night meal, and now they're bringing me other foods inside besides the bread. If they're things that are coming as part of the meal, that was fast. Anything, let's say it's meat, cheese, eggs, vegetables, you name it, like I just said, it's covered. You don't say a beracha, a first beracha, because the birkat hamotzi potartan, because the bread takes care of it. And you don't say a separate beracha afterwards. The birkat hamazon potartan, because birkat hamazon covers everything. So when you have bread Friday night, that's why most people are, when my dad's not yelling at me to make a beracha, so when is he around to yell at me? Shabbat, but we're not making berachot anyway. So it's hard for people to adjust during the week. So once you have things that are coming as a part of the meal, meat, vegetable, cheeses, any of those things, even other things that are mezonot, pasta, the bread covers everything. But if there are things that are not part of the meal, meaning that they don't complement the bread, like a person has te'enim and anavim, right? Grapes and figs. If you eat them without bread, you have to say a beracha beforehand. The birkat hamotzi ena potartan. The blessing of hamotzi lechamin haaretz doesn't cover it. They're not the main part of the meal. But birkat hamazon does take care of it at the end. So again, things that are eaten together with bread, which is most everything, the bread covers it, and you say you don't need a beracha in the beginning, and you say birkat hamazon at the end, and it covers it. Things that, like, again, I'm telling you, this applies almost exclusively to fruits or sweets that are brought to you. You need to say another beracha because it's not something that is not eaten with bread. Last thing, this is the last source, source 18, but very quickly, and then we'll take questions on both because it's 12 o'clock now. Just two very important halachot that I get asked about often, and I think it's important. Yain. So what about wine? You could wash your hands and say hamotzi lechamin haaretz, but if somebody brings you a glass of wine in the meal, you need to say hagefen. Gefen is just as strong as bread, as you don't eat the wine together mixed with the bread. Wine gets its own beracha. Now, on Friday night, that's one of the reasons why you taste the wine. When somebody says, if you know you're gonna have wine in the middle of the meal, when whoever's saying kiddush says kiddush, it says borei pri hagefen, and they drink, now they're covered. When they have wine in the middle of the meal, they don't need to say hagefen. If you want to do that same thing, don't make another beracha for no reason. Taste the wine. There's two reasons why we taste the wine Friday night. One, to show that we love the mitzvah, and secondly, to show that if we want to have wine in the middle of the meal, we're making the beracha now. So wine is not covered by bread. But what does wine cover, and this is very important, yain poter kol minei mashkin. Once you say borei pri hagefen, you don't say shehakol on your Coca-Cola or on your water. Once you say yain, then it's fine. Yain covers all of the drinks that are at the table. Okay, let's take quick questions now before we sign off. I know it's 12 o'clock. If anybody has to leave, it's fine, but I will stay for some questions. Anybody?
I just have one question.
Yeah.
Dad, hi.
Yes, Odette, how you doing?
Okay, thank you. Before, I don't understand, before you say Bakat Hamazon, you could still say Mezonot on something at the table?
So we don't, because mezonot is covered.
It's covered, right?
It's covered. But let's say there was something that I would think of it now that was mezonot that has nothing to do with bread. Let's say like a Kit Kat, right? Some people will say a beracha on the Kit Kat because it has nothing to do with the bread, right? If it's a regular cake or if it's a cookie, it's a type of bread. But
is it because they didn't accept hamotzi? You know, some people come to the table Friday, they don't want to eat the bread.
So it's not, they can't do that. That's first of all. Like if they're answering amen, they can, but they don't wash their hands then.
Right.
But the point is that something that is not eaten together with bread, you say a new beracha. Most mizonot are covered already, but you do say like a ha'etz, or that like before Birkat Hamazon, you're going to say if there's fruit salad that's brought to you, you have to say ha'etz or ha'adama.
Right, but is it on the table when you're making kiddush and hamotzi, or they could bring it afterwards?
They can bring it afterwards. Mostly they bring it afterwards. And even if it was on the table before, I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody loves to eat the mishmosh from the yebra, right? Or that.
Okay, right.
So those are apricots, right?
Right.
Well, apricots are not really eaten with bread. Some people say that if they're just eating apricots, or let's say they love the yebra, somebody brings them a little bit of apricots in the middle of the table, in the middle of the meal. You got to say ha'etz on that. Because it's not covered by the bread.
Right.
Everything you make is covered by the bread. The mechshi,
right.
Everything.
But if you eat just like a prune or an apricot, you know.
Exactly. Okay. Fruits, jello, just ice cream, those things are exceptions. A candy.
So you bring pomegranates to the table separate from the salad.
Exactly.
Okay, fine. All right, interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Anybody else? Okay, guys, thank you. We're done with this topic. I'm just going to check my schedule for 1 second because I think we have only one more class to go. I'm just going to look it up. Next week is our last class. We're going to do something. I'm going to think of something. It'll either be our Birkat Hamazon or just random, loose ends that we had. But either way, so far it's been great. Let's spread the word for next week, our last class. Thank you guys for attending.
Rabbi, maybe we could do the berachot for the mezonot and the two berachot. You know, I never know what to say for shahakol, whatever. I don't do it right.
In which topic? Which topic?
You know, after we eat fruit or after we eat a dessert.
Okay.
Those are topics that
maybe we'll do that. Yes. And I think for next semester, I got a lot of votes. People want to do kosher kitchen, so maybe we'll do that. I'm not sure. You guys can vote also. So
okay.
Thank you. Hey, you're welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi, very much.
Guys, take care, Jacqueline. Take care, guys.